Hello, welcome. So today we're going to be going into r/relationships where OP has been in love with their best friend for years. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, sit back, relax, and enjoy. And don't forget to like and subscribe, please. Thank you. So the title of the first post is I've, F23, been in love with my best friend M21 since I first met him. It's not going away and I don't know how to deal with it because I have no idea if he likes me and it's stopping me from meeting someone else. Honestly, this is pretty straightforward. We met about 2 years ago and I instantly crushed on the guy. I honestly thought our first few nights out were dates, up until the point he went on a rant about a girl he had a crush on after a few beers. Oh, OP. I bet that was gut-wrenching, bless you. At that point, my thought process was pretty much, okay, not dates, got it, and moved on with an intent of friendship. Except, funny thing is, turns out he checks all my boxes. I've never gotten along with anyone this well. People are shocked to find out, or, well, not anymore, but up until after a year after we became friends, we haven't known each other for years and years. We have the same humour, like the same games and TV shows, we agree on politics, want the same things in life, all well enough to get along, but still with enough differences that we can have conversations about it. We discover bands together, we help each other with work on writing papers, I call him when I'm sad, and we both think it feels weird to not see each other for a week. I mean, this quite very much sounds like two people that should date, to be honest. Problem is, I'm completely head over effing heels in love with the man, and it's starting to get to the point where I don't know what to do. I thought it'd go away, but every time I meet him, it feels like I'm falling all over again. My friends have gone from teasing me about it to shooting me pitying looks whenever his name is brought up. My sister wants me to just stop seeing him. I go a week without talking to him, and I think I'm starting to get over it, but whenever I see him again, it all comes rushing back. I don't know what to do. It hurts and it's not fun anymore. I've been on dates with some amazing guys who liked me, but my feelings for my friend is stopping me from falling for someone else. It's starting to feel pathetic, and at this point, I see no good option. He's my best friend, the best I've ever had, and I just don't want to lose him. At this point, I think asking him out would achieve that. Since it's been so long since we met, I know the only way for me personally to get over someone is to stop seeing them, but I don't want to lose my best friend. Mate, ask him out. My goodness. Like, you could just preface it in the way of being like, hey, I need to be honest with you. I have these feelings, but I don't want to ruin our friendship. If you don't feel the same, that's cool. You know, we can just be friends, but if I don't say it, it's going to eat me up. And if he says no, you can still be friends. You just got to give yourself time to get over that initial rejection, you know? By the way, the wind is extremely strong outside today where I live. So if you can hear what sounds like moaning and whistling, I promise you, there's nothing weird going on in my house. It is the wind. I've shut all the windows and I can still hear it whistling and like groaning through somewhere. It must be coming through a vent or something, possibly the bathroom vent. But yeah, when you live in these old houses in the UK, they just make some of the weirdest noises at the best of times. So when the wind is like gale force wind outside, it's terrible. Like literally a couple of weeks ago, my water completely cut out for a whole day because a tree fell on the flaming pumps that boost it to come into us. So yeah, do apologise for that if it does sound quite bad in the background. Anyway, back to the post. The finishing touch keeping me on the hook are these looks he gives me. I've had other friends confirm he does this because I was honest to God starting to think I was losing my effing mind. Whenever we're out in a group, at a party, or the pub, whenever I look over at him, it seems he's always looking at me. And these eye contacts last way too long to be normal. Oh, prolonged eye contact is like way too uncomfortable for me. I'd be like, what are you looking at? I don't like that. Divert your eyes. Like a good 6-7 seconds of us just looking at each other across the table, or the room, or the bar. And he does this little smile, I've never seen it on him in any other situation. I don't know what it means, and I have no idea why we do this or how it came to be. Just the final effing nail in the coffin of hopelessness I'm buried in right now. OP, are you sure he doesn't feel the same way too? I mean, I know that friends can be very, like, intimate with each other. My stomach's making some right noises again. I know I know that friends can be, like, really intimate with each other in certain ways and do things that other people would look at and be like, "That's a bit too close." Like, people are constantly convinced me and my best mate are dating, but obviously we're not. It just so happens to be that she's one person that I'm very comfortable with, and we're just really over the top and silly with it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's trying to like give you a signal that he feels the same. You just don't know until you say something. I want to shake you right now and just be like, go and say something. I don't know if I'm crazy and overinterpreting things, which is very likely, or if I should just give it a shot and ask him out. Do it now. Even though it might ruin the friendship, or just stop seeing him, or to just carry on and hope this feeling goes away at some point of the distant future. I'm so frustrated. I want to cry, and I have cried a lot. I just don't know what to do here. TLDR, I'm in love with my best friend. It has become a huge problem in my life. When we've been drinking, he keeps looking at me in a way I'd describe as smitten if it were any other person. I don't know what to do to get out of this hole of constant heartbreak and misery and how to be able to move on to other guys. So sad. So sad. But also, go and flame and say something for God's sake. And then down in the comments, a deleted user has said, so ask him out already. The problem is you won't be able to move on to other guys because this thought about him will always be in the back of your head, lingering over your other relationships. Precisely. I agree. And then Sylvain says, you have two options. Option one is not asking him out and you'll continue to be miserable and not be able to move on. Option two is asking him out. He'll either shoot you down, you'll be miserable, but be able to move on in time, or he'll go out with you. Both outcomes for option two are better than option one. If you don't ask him in order to keep your friend, it will ultimately backfire because he will eventually pick up on how miserable you are with the situation and probably think he's done something wrong. Yeah, exactly. And the thing is as well, you're essentially putting yourself in your own little prison of limbo where it's concerned, and you don't have to be there. Having an answer, whether it's the answer you want or the answer you don't want, is better than just torturing yourself and never knowing. Because do you know what? It's amazing how quickly and easily you can move on once somebody said to you, I'm sorry, but I'm just not interested in you. Like, I will move on out of friggin' spite, mate. If someone says to me, if I was to say to someone, I really like you and I'm interested in you, and they were like, I'm just not interested in you, sorry, I'd be like, right then, you're dead to me, see you later. You know, I would move on out of spite. But no, honestly, I think you could move on and still remain friends. You don't have to be, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, you know? I've only had, I would say, like one experience with sort of feeling like this, and I was very young and a teenager, so I do feel like it's different than when you're a fully grown adult with fully grown adult feelings, you know? But basically, when I was in school, when I was like from the age of 14 to 15, nearly 16, there was this lad in my classes who I had a lot of my classes with, and he's really like, really, to me at the time, he was the best thing since sliced bread. And he was actually a really nice lad. He was a really nice lad, really chill. I had the biggest crush on him going. So anyway, in my brain, I was like, well, I can't tell him I have a crush on him. So essentially, I just became really good friends with him instead, because that's a good idea. And I'll never forget one day we were in the main hall where we would do like productions and things like that. And basically, I can't remember what we were doing in there. What were we doing in there? Because there was no teachers in there. There was a couple of other kids that were on the stage. I feel like we'd been let to go in there because we'd offered to help with some flaming talent show thing that we were doing or whatever. I can't remember. I know I only offered to help because we got like gifts for doing it. And essentially, also because he was doing it. So we're in there, and I used to wear a lot of makeup to school. I was one of them. So I had this like winged blue eyeliner on, and he comes up to me and he was like, "Oh, wait there, something's happened to your makeup." Basically, he reaches out and he's like touching my face. Of course, little me is like, "Oh my God, yes, this is the best thing ever." And basically wipes off the wings of my eyeliner because he thought that they weren't supposed to be there, and I'd like rubbed my eye and smudged it up my eye. But because I had such a crush on this lad, I basically just sat there and let him ruin my makeup. All because I was like, "Oh, well, at least he's given me some attention." So yeah. All that to say, we all go through it at some point, I think. And yeah, since then, I don't think I've ever spoken to the lad since leaving school. I know my mum dated his dad, though, for a bit when I was in my early 20s, which is weird as hell. But anyway, back to the post because we do actually have an update. Yay! So, hello. A little over 5 years ago, I made a post on this subreddit looking for advice on how to handle my incredibly painful, unrequited love for my best friend. I'd honestly forgotten about this until making a password reset on another account and saw Tobes13 among my email search results. But as I read through the post, I remember how very comforting and terrifying the responses to my post was, being a more or less unanimous "ask him out." That scared my ass to death. Sorry that this isn't really a happy update, but I don't know. I felt weird seeing something I wrote in what feels like a different life, and the people who responded seemed so genuinely kind and trying to help. I feel like I weirdly owe some kind of update. I am so glad you're giving an update. I love it when they give updates. It's like my favorite thing. It's like, oh, it just rounds everything off nicely, you know? Especially for that one dear sweet commenter whose account is now deleted. I so wished I'd have a way to reach out to them because that was one of my most thoughtful comments I think I've ever gotten. I don't know what comment that was, by the way. I did try and find it on the original post and I couldn't find it. Might be because it was deleted that I couldn't find it. And just to recap, with hindsight, I really, really was in love with this man, and I had been for about 2 years. Like full 9 yards in love, struggling to breathe when he talked about someone else, but still cheering him on because he deserved happiness levels of in love. If that sounds a bit like obsession to you, then that's because it probably was. Yeah, it definitely does sound a bit like that. The thing about unrequited love, the thing that really sucks about it, is that it's incredibly hard to move on from. But until you do move on, your brain keeps obsessing about it to the point where it can be impossible to get anything done. It had been 2 years of that when I made that post. 2 years of pining and pain and an ever-growing pile of crushed hopes. And I think I was going a little bit insane, constantly swinging between butterflies and love highs when I was with my friend, and the crushing feeling of rejection every time he'd say goodbye. And the obsession over things like how long he'd look at me, how long he'd let a hug last, how fast he'd respond to my texts, things which could either make or break my entire day depending on what the answer was. On to the actual update. After that primer, about a month and a half or so after I made that post, still trying to hype myself up to actually ask this man out, I accidentally became a head organiser for an event at the university I was studying at for the moment. Long story short, the person managing me was not kind. I was extremely overworked from the event on top of writing a thesis. I was equally stressed out in my private life due to my situation with my best friend, and I ended up going through a pretty severe case of burnout. Add on to everything that I developed an addiction to drink to try to handle everything, and was also experiencing what was most likely a induced paranoid psychosis, and I was a mess. I ended up moving back in with my dad in September and spent a year doing nothing but sleeping, crying, playing Skyrim, and going to rehab and therapy. Start of 2021, I went back to school and slowly recovered. I've been sober since 2020. The paranoia hasn't completely gone away, but it's been more manageable. I used to think my landlord listened to me through a radon measurement device, and at least that's over. And I think I've got a work-life balance figured out that's helped me not overwork myself or go into free time lethargy because I've got too much time off. It was long and painful, but I did it. Do you know, the most rewarding journeys, though, are usually the ones that are the most just absolutely brutal ones. Sometimes you've got to drag yourself through the hot coals to get to the other side, and the other side is a lot better. So I'm glad you're doing better, and I'm really glad you had a lot of therapy because it definitely sounds like that's something that you really, really needed. If not just for your best friend, obviously for your paranoia and things like that, because yeah, that can definitely eat a person up. If you're wondering where my best friend was in all this, I honestly don't know. I went back to look at our text messages, and from what I can see, he tried to call me a few times in early September. I didn't respond, and then nothing until around Christmas when he wondered if I wanted to meet up sometime. I said yes, and then never followed through. He hasn't texted me since January 4th, 2020. Maybe that's for the best. Maybe it's for the best because you do seem like somebody who is very prone to getting in your own feelings, addiction, things like that. And interaction with people can be addictive in a negative way. You know, certain people can be addictive to us in a very toxic way. And sometimes they may not have done anything wrong, but if you're going to obsess over them, it's sometimes just better to cut them out of your life for that reason. You've got to do what's best for you at the end of the day, and it's not nice, but it's necessary. Now, to be clear, I don't blame him for not reaching out more. My non-responding is what killed that friendship. I know, because it also killed every other friendship I had at the time. I don't know. Drink addiction, deep depression, and crippling paranoia may be a fair explanation to one day stop responding to any of your friends, but I still deeply regret those choices. If I were to make a relationships post today, it would be on how the F you word an apology after behaviour like that 5 years down the road. I mean, I don't think you necessarily need to apologise for things that your brain has done to you. You can't help depression and paranoia. It's your brain not functioning as it should, and no one can really help that. Obviously, you did the work to help yourself by getting the therapy, and that's really good, but it could happen to any one of us. So maybe just saying, look, I know I was a bit of a shitebag friend. I am really sorry. This is what I was going through. I've done the work. I'm better now. You know, if you want to be friends, that'd be great. If you don't completely understand, and just leave it at that. And then it's easy enough for those people to decide then whether they can handle that or whether they can't. And if they can't, they're not for you anyway. Sorry, I feel like this is starting to become a journal. I'm going to stop my reflections there. So, about my love for my best friend, with some years of hindsight and therapy behind me, I don't think I was in love with him. I think I was in love with the idea of him, and I think I was obsessed for sure, but looking back, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I think a part of me really liked the fact that this was a person who was so clearly wasn't interested in me. I genuinely think he was, though, to be fair. Genuinely, if he was, that would shock me to find out, because he spent 2.5 years ignoring the, in hindsight, very obvious attempts I made to deepen the relationship. Some examples include him saying he's waiting for the right person and me responding, sometimes I feel like I already have. Do you ever feel like that? And him going, nah, I don't think so. Okay, maybe he didn't feel the same then. Me following that up with, maybe you just don't know. The heart is weird sometimes. And him going, I'm pretty sure I'd know. One time we talked about why people fall in love, and I genuinely tried to convince him that a deep friendship was all you needed. Well, he insisted that there needed to be a level of sexual attraction as well. I tried to get him to do that 36 questions that will make you fall in love thing with me. I kept trying to find excuses to hold his hand. Rest in peace, my palm reading career. You were nothing but a thinly veiled attempt at finger touching. And him resolutely never going along with it. Ditto, but with hugs, arm touching, and sitting just a little too close whenever we went out so I could hear him better. Okay. Which he normally responded to by going, we should go outside so you can hear better if it's too loud in here. Very thoughtful, but very much not what the goal was. Okay, yeah, so maybe he did know. Maybe he did know that you felt that way because those are very glaringly obvious signs. But then again, a lot of straight men that I have met miss the signs that smack them right in the face. So who knows? One night, when we were alone in my apartment after a club event, after a particularly long shared look, I asked him what he was thinking about in that kind of, I don't want to break the illusion, soft voice you put on when you're really effing close to someone you like. And his response was, I don't know if I agree that Gert's metaphor about blinking makes that much sense, actually. For context, we'd bickered about that earlier in the night since we'd just read some articles about it in class. I did not expect it to make a comeback at that point. Another night, when we were out together and there had been a lot of looks and closely leaned in laughing together, and he pulls me to one side by the hand to talk to me about something, heart racing, only to ask me if I know if one of my friends is single because he thinks she's really effing cute and might have been looking at him all night. Oh, gut punch, I can imagine that was. Bless you. Oh. Yeah, I can imagine that didn't feel very nice at all. But no, I think definitely now after reading those, maybe he didn't feel the same. And you were interpreting what you thought were emotionally and romantically charged glances and looks were just him trying to communicate something to you. Like I do with my mates when we're just giving each other, that look like you're trying to say something without saying it because you're in a crowd. Looking back, at least some of this stuff is sort of funny. I have no idea if he knew, or knows now, that I was in love with him. I wouldn't be surprised if some of my old friends eventually told him, but of course, he'd never reached out about it. But yes, I think I kinda liked the security of this person who clearly didn't like me back. Not that I was doing well with the heartache, but there's a certain kind of effed up comfort that comes from pining for someone who doesn't want you back. Like the highs I'd get when I got something that I felt like confirmation made up for the lows of crying in my apartment stairway when I got home from after a denial. Yeah, like I say, like with me when I was in school and the lad wiped my flaming makeup off and I was just like, I'm just gonna let you do this. you know? And then afterwards it'd be like, oh, he still doesn't like me. So I completely get that. Today, I mostly just feel so bad for him and ashamed of myself, regardless of whether he knew or not. And I'm trying to cling to the fact that he seemed to at least continue wanting to be friends as some indicator that he never felt creeped out or uncomfortable. My behavior was pretty effing creepy. And in the end, once I did get that distance between us, the feelings went away after some 6 months or so. My therapist recommended not meeting this person again for my own sake, but by early 2020, I wasn't so painfully in love anymore. I think your therapist is giving you some very sound advice there. A while later, I end up meeting a guy I clicked with just as much who actually liked me back and showed it. We've been together for almost 3 years now, and we are talking about starting to try for kids at some point soon. He'd like us to get married first, but is also insisting he wants to be the one to propose, so I'm just walking around waiting for the day. Even if it's not a huge surprise or secret, he just wants to get that moment of going down on one knee, and who am I to deny him? Oh, bless. I'm slowly growing old and boring. I'm sober. I go to my boring, stable, middle career 9 to 5 job. I save for my retirement and traveling on the summers. I help my dad out on his farm. I crochet little animals for my newborn niece. I come home to a man who plays his silly video games and I play my silly video games. We go for walks into the museum and bicker about whether to get fat on takeout or not. I have some regrets about how my early 20s ended up playing out, but by God, I wouldn't go back. Oh, that's so cute. I'm so glad you finally got your happy ending because it sounds like you've put the work in and you deserve it. TLDR, I didn't ask him out. Instead, I had a severe mental health crisis, stopped talking to all my friends, got sober, crawled my way back, and now looking back, I'm surprisingly happy with how life turned out. Oh, and I genuinely did not exaggerate those looks. I remember them very clearly and once had a mutual friend comment on it. I still have no idea what was up with those. He doesn't strike me as a person who would try to keep someone on the hook or anything, more like he was just painfully socially oblivious, but I still wonder so much about those goddamn looks, man. Yeah, I think he is just very, very oblivious, bless him, and I just think the looks were probably him trying to get your attention for something else. Like I say, like maybe being like, oh my god, this person who's talking to me is driving me nuts, come and save me. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. And then down in the comments from the update, S. Moore says, I'm slowly growing old and boring. F yes, old and boring, a lot better than the alternative. You've made it. And then OP replies, oh god, yes. You know what's cooler than living fast and dying young? Living until you're old and dying at peace. Absolutely. I love being boring. Like I said, I've said a few times now, I barely leave the house, and I'm so okay with that. And then Danarexosaurus says, this didn't go where I expected, but I am happy you've moved on from this. It sounds like you're in a good place. I was you about 8 years ago, pining desperately for my best friend. Our story ended differently, but honestly, it could have ended the very same way had I not told him how I felt. Growing distance and no longer even talking was definitely on the table, because that's kind of the two outcomes, right? Get together or don't. You don't just get over someone when you're spending so much time and energy on them, they've got to go away for a while. Please be aware that mental health issues can be exacerbated by having a baby. Hormones are wild. Have a plan in place for that potential and never be afraid to ask for help. Yeah, definitely. They can absolutely and will kick your backside daily, those hormones. Like, say, done it twice, and oh my god. Oh, with the first one, I swear I felt like I was just the worst person ever for a whole year. For a whole year, I just felt like the absolute worst person ever. I felt like nothing I did was right. I mean, but the kids turned out fine. So clearly that wasn't the case. But you know what I mean? Like, those hormones will just, they will beat you up. They are awful. But yeah, I'm so glad it all worked out okay in the end, and that OP was able to find their place in life and not just be following this guy around, pining for them. Like, no one wants to do that. So I'm really glad, and I'm glad you got your happy ending too. And I think that's going to be it for today. If you've made it to the end of the video, then I very much appreciate you. And I'd appreciate you even more if you give me a like and a subscribe so you can find your way back here. I post every single day from different subreddits as well. I like to change it up a bit, you know. Other than that, I hope you have a really good rest of your day, whatever it is you're doing, and goodbye.